Do not injure, abuse, oppress, enslave, insult, torment, torture, or kill any creature or living being. Can you hold a red-hot iron rod in your hand merely because someone wants you to do so? Then will it be right on your part to ask others to do the same thing just to satisfy your desires? If you cannot tolerate infliction of pain on your body or mind by others' words and actions, what right have you to do the same to others through your own words and deeds? Do unto others as you would like to be done by. Injury or violence done by you to any life in any form, animal or human, is as harmful as it would be if it caused to your own self. Kill not, cause no pain. Non-violence is the greatest religion. In happiness and suffering, in joy and grief, we should regard all creatures as we regard our own self. All breathing, existing, living, sentient creatures should not be slain, nor treated with violence, nor abused, nor tormented, nor driven away. A man is seated on top of a tree in the midst of a burning forest. He sees all living beings perish, but he doesn't realize that the same fate is soon to overtake him also. That man is fool.
Violence in our leaders. Why do we still go to war? You would think, with all the incredible technology we have created, that war would be obsolete. Yet we make greater weapons of mass destruction. With all our knowledge and our so-called wisdom, you would think that we could overcome any problems. We could use our wisdom to solve any conflict which leads to war. Yet mankind still hasn't solved the mystery of discovering the jewel within. Until that missing piece is discovered, we will always go through the ups and downs of violence inside of us. Scientists and mystics know about the quantum field that unites us all. It is staring us in the face. We need to look in the inner mirror to find out that we are all on the same boat. The definition of violence is a behavior involving physical force intended to hurt, damage, or to kill someone or something. Last weekend, the president did the following. This is the headline from CNN. Trump responds to protests with a strongman act. Trump on Monday turned security forces on peaceful protesters in front of the White House as tear gas and rubber bullets flew before declaring himself the law and order president. Then, in one of the most bizarre moments in modern presidential history, he strode across the park to stand in front of an iconic church holding a Bible aloft in a striking photo op. It was a moment of vanity and bravado, orchestrated for the cameras and transparently political, as Trump struggles to cope with protests sweeping the country after the killing of George Floyd and tries to cover up his botched leadership during the corona pandemic. Overnight, the White House official Twitter account released a triumphant video of the moment set to music, omitting any signs of the mayhem unleashed on the protesters. I'm mentioning this because in a week, the story will soon be forgotten. We have an administration where almost every single day some outrageous event occurs. If one of these occurred in the previous administration, that would have been his legacy and people would talk about it for his entire term. We have a president who has lied over 18,000 times since taking office. Look, if I told you 5 lies and you found out they were lies, you wouldn't believe a word I said. Still, most conservatives and Christians support the current administration. This should go beyond politics. Mind you, this is a moral and ethical issue. We need to vote for politicians who truly care about the people. We need term limits. Corporations aren't human beings. Take that away. Get rid of the lobbyists. If someone slanders another person in a campaign, don't vote for him. If politicians vote for corporations over man, don't vote for them. Vote against all politicians who give huge tax credits to the 1%. Get them out of office. They don't care about the common American who's struggling to be alive. I said this in the intro. Here we are amid a global shutdown. At least 30 million Americans got laid off. Most of these people can't pay their bills. Congress is bickering with one another. Here's an excerpt from Forbes magazine. Billionaires are getting richer during the COVID-19 pandemic, while most Americans suffer. Billionaires are not in the same boat with the rest of us as they try to navigate the treacherous currents of the COVID-19 pandemic. They're smoothing sailing in luxury yachts, while most Americans are doing the doggy paddle, treading water, and just trying to stay afloat. This is the greatest violence towards Americans. Millions of people are striving, and we have an administration that are starving, and we have an administration that allows this to happen. We are a third world country now. This is beyond politics. The definition of evil is profoundly immoral and wicked. That about sums it up. If anyone out there can tell me why the rich should get richer and the poor get poorer is a good thing, please send me a comment about why. When the poor can't pay their bills and feed their precious families so the rich can get richer is an evil act. Yet most politicians go on their merry way. That, my friend, is called violence. Did Jainism help shape the American Civil Rights Movement? The American Civil Rights Movement during the mid-1950s to early 70s marked one of the most tumultuous periods of social change and unrest in American history. A wave of political and social conservatism consumed the national attention during the 1950s after the end of World War II, and now with the African American Civil Rights Movement in full swing, the fires of change swept through American culture. So how could James, who are hardly known outside of academia in the United States at this time, have any influence on social movements in America? As with many events that are life, it isn't the impact that reaches you, but the ripple. Meet our impact point, Srimad Rajchandra. Srimad Rajchandra was a Jain philosopher who lived in India between 1867 and 1901. After watching a funeral prior at a young age, it is said that Srimad Rajchandra suddenly recollected all his past lives, thus gleaning all the knowledge and spiritual wisdom he obtained in those periods. He would go on to spend the rest of his life teaching and writing about spiritual concepts within the Jain framework until he died at the age of 32. His most important literary work, which bears his name, is hardly regarded even today. What is interesting about his story, among other things, is that Srimad Rajchandra made a very special friendship with one of history's most endearing activists, Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi himself regarded Srimad Rajchandra as not only a friend, but a spiritual guide. I have drunk to my heart's content the nectar of religion that was offered to me by Sri Ramachandra. Rajchandra hated the spread of irreligion in the name of religion, and he condemned lies, hypocrisy, and such other vices which were getting a free hand in his time. He considered the whole world as his relative, and his sympathy extended to all living beings of all ages. Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi is who as many of us think of regarding civil disobedience and nonviolent resistance. Under the influences of his native Hindu faith, his mentor, Srimad Rajchandra, who practiced ahimsa, long non-injury, and a love for freedom, Gandhi began civil rights and liberation movements in South Africa during his early years as an attorney before moving on to his native India. Gandhi is known for his non-violent resistance against British rule in India, which after years of struggle led to its independence in 1947. He was assassinated in 1948. The science of war leads one to dictatorship, pure and simple. The science of nonviolence alone can lead one to pure democracy. Power based on love is 1,000 times more effective and permanent than power derived from fear of punishment. Mahatma Gandhi. From America's South, its own philosopher and a propagator of nonviolence and change, soon rose Martin Luther King Jr., a Baptist preacher from Georgia with a tremendous personality, an academic marvel with a flair for leadership and activism. He helped found the SCLC, Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and was a prominent leader in the NAACP. King led the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955, which opposed the Montgomery, Alabama transit segregation policy and played a pivotal role in the 1963 March on Washington, where he delivered his I Have a Dream speech. While King cited many influences for his position on nonviolent activism, he spoke warmly of none other than Mahatma Gandhi. King was greatly impacted by Gandhi's work after visiting India, a trip they may have helped shape the American political and social structure forever. Since being in India, I am more convinced than ever before that the method of nonviolent resistance is the most potent weapon available to oppress people in their struggle for justice and human dignity. In a real sense, Mahatma Gandhi embodied in his life certain universal principles that are inherent in the moral structures of the universe, and these principles are as inescapable as the law of gravitation. Martin Luther King Jr. With the help of King and many others in the struggle for racial equality, America eventually adopted the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the Immigration and National Service Act of 1965 and the Fair Housing Act of 1968, among others. For his service to humanity, King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. He was assassinated in 1968. Ripple's Martin Luther King Jr. was an American Christian. Gandhi was a Hindu. Srimad Rajchandra was a Jain philosopher. Lord Mahavira taught his people 2,500 years ago in northern India. Each ripple reached out inch by inch and eventually covered the world. And the influence of nonviolent activism is still alive today with our current Occupy movement, which has spread globally. So now we see that how Jainism sufficiently influenced social change across centuries and nations without converting a single soul, without coercion, without force, but simply because it makes sense. What sort of ripple will you form today? Nonviolence in protest. Which is better, violence or nonviolence? A study by Eric Chenoweth and Maria Stephan found that nonviolent revolutions are twice as effective as violent ones and lead to much greater degree of democratic freedom. The Jains have been practicing nonviolence for over 2,500 years. Both Gandhi and Martin Luther King used nonviolence for their causes. What does that have to do with me? Just think in America has only spent around 30 years not fighting a war. Where do these wars begin? Inside of our minds. Our movie industry makes billions promoting violence. Bullying is rampant among children. The United States has more murders than any Western civilization. More people in America have died in shootings than all the wars that soldiers have died in. A violent protest leads to destruction. A nonviolent protest leads to eventual freedom. Remember, violence comes from darkness. Nonviolence comes from the light. Eventually, the light overcomes darkness. In fact, darkness is the absence of light. During these recent protests occurring because of the death of George Floyd, who died as a police officer, millions of peaceful and non-violent protesters held rallies all across America. Only a few were violent. Most of the violence was done by outside groups who love to vandalize people and property. The only way for a better future is to have a non-violent protest. Gandhi and Martin Luther King are examples. I believe this is the protest for the future. The silent protest is an organized effort where the participants stay quiet to demonstrate disapproval. It is used as a form of civil disobedience and nonviolent resistance. There's nothing about a protest where thousands of people aren't shouting or yelling, but in absolute silence. They are all united. Words do not need to be spoken. Silence is a huge key to fight violence. Behind silence lies true justice, freedom, and peace. Recently, in George Floyd's protest, many protests used this technique. watch the YouTube videos below. Nonviolence in schools. Coleman McCarthy, director of the Center for Teaching Peace in Washington, D.C., said the following quote, "If we don't teach our children peace, someone else will teach them violence." Over 187,000 students have experienced school shootings since Columbine. This is the headline from an article in the Daily Beast. I can't imagine the terror it is for these kids to experience this, yet the killings go on. The Second Amendment of the United States Constitution reads, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." To be honest, war is obsolete. Guns are obsolete. They will never solve anything. I can't believe that in many schools they have metal detection for students entering the school. When I was a kid, shooting was virtually unknown. Today, it's almost a weekly occurrence. How can you learn anything in a violent environment? We spend about 60% of our budget on defense. Why don't we spend 30% of our budget on education? Why not give teachers a six-figure salary? Most teachers barely make a decent living, yet they are the foundation for educating our young. What kind of president are we saying to our young? You aren't worth it, so we will do the bare minimum. What greater violence is that? Our politicians pay lip service, yet they spend trillions on the defense and give tax breaks to the rich. When I was young, many moons ago, California was number 3 in the state for the quality of education. Today, it is 47th in the nation. What happened? A society's foundation is the strength of having educated citizens. All past civilizations' downfall was the deterioration of education, and when more than half of your budget is spent on defense. According to Forbes magazine, student loan debt in 2020 is now about $1.56 trillion. There are 45 million borrowers who collectively owe nearly $1.6 trillion in student loan debt in the United States. Student loan debt is now the second highest consumer debt category, behind only mortgage debt, and higher than both credit cards and auto loans. The average student loan debt for members of the class of 2018 is $29,200, a 2% increase from the prior year, according to the Institute for College Access and Success. When I went to college, my student debt was $10,000. It took me 10 years to pay it off. There are 7 developed nations, including Sweden, Norway, and Ireland, where students attend school for free. Sweden does not charge tuition for both public and private colleges. Norway pays the most for college subsidies, spending 1.3% of its annual GDP. The students are digging a financial hole that is almost impossible to get out. Obama took out $42,753 in loans to pay his tuition at Harvard Law School, the Chicago Sun-Times reported. First Lady Michelle Obama went $40,762 in debt to finance her Harvard Law education. It was not until after Obama signed a $1.9 million book deal in 2004, the year he was elected to the U.S. Senate, that the couple paid off all their student loans, according to the Sun-Times. Obama was lucky. He signed a major deal where he could pay off both of his wife's and his student loans. We have a lot to learn about being nonviolent, especially when it comes to our education. Democratic principles in social equality. The following comes from the book Pure Freedom, The Janeway of Self-Reliance by Mr. Amar Sagia. Democratic principles and social equality. No war or violent campaigns was ever waged by James to convert, coerce, proselyte, or ensure safety in numbers. Even in positions of great power, James never sought to institute a religious empire or grab land from people. Throughout history and in today's world, James societies have not and need not employ military action or political pressure in order to flourish, grow, prosper, and integrate an ethnic revolution in the greater community. Jainism and its notion of spiritual freedom have always appealed to individuals from every socio-economic level. Thousands of years before the French and American Revolution, the United States Constitution, the abolition of slavery, and the Civil Rights Movement, James exposed and practiced the doctrine that all human beings are and should be treated as spiritual equals. Rejecting the historic concurrent and widespread infliction of slavery, caste, hierarchy, the subjection of women, and religious sacrifice of humans and animals, James long ago set an egalitarian example that still serves as a beacon for advocates of democratic values. In the midst of a class-torn society, James pioneered the institution of secular public education for all to such an extent that in a certain Indian language, Tamil, the very word for school, Pali, actually means Jain temple. Up through the 21st century, entire communities from the poor, downtrodden, and rejected classes have continued to find dignity and solace in the Jain religion. The Jain vision of social service can be contrasted with a currently in vogue concept of social justice, a modern term for state-imposed redistribution of wealth and resources. Jainism puts the responsibility on the individual to be charitable voluntarily, not only by contributing to worthy causes, but also by creating a unique personal enterprise assisting those in need. Independence from priestly domination, Jainism has always been predominantly a religion and a faith of the laity. Every living soul is free to pursue spiritual goals on its own without any need for outside help. Ultimately, God is not an external person, place, or thing, but a certain state of one's own existence. There is no need for an intermediary, be it human or heavenly, to bridge the gap between oneself and one's innate constitution. Hence, James never invented a pyramid bureaucracy or priestly class having authority over people. As a result, all Janes enjoy free participation and unconstrained access in community and religious activities. Female emancipation. The soul has no gender, and by their fundamental nature, no soul or souls can ever be superior or inferior to one another. All are spiritually identical. In social arenas, this principle has guided Jain society in profound ways, not least among the area of gender issues. Jain recognizes the spiritual equality of genders in the same light as that of races and of species. Whereas most of the ancient world was at best patronizing towards female, Jain society, the Vidi Sangha, as ordained by the great crossing makers, has been found equally upon four types of people: male ascetics, monks; female ascetics, nuns; laymen, shravakas; and laywomen, shrivavikas. This society is not a hierarchy of any kind of social devices. Without the participation of and equal regard for each of these four spiritual resources, society is deemed incomplete. Thus, female education has typically been as high a priority as for male. In the land of Jainism's origin, its followers included the largest proportion of educated women of any religious community and across the globe. A large majority of young Jain women are college educated. As an outcome of both academics and ideology, women have enjoyed a progressive state of opportunity in Jain society. Moreover, Jain children are raised to regard male monks with the same veneration and respect as female nuns. In fact, female nuns outnumber male monks by a ratio above 2-to-1, and evidence show this has been the case for thousands of years. Since ancient times, women have been important leaders in Jain society and contributed to religious and psychological and physiological literature, the arts, education, and spiritual inspiration for all. Nonviolence in relationships. I wish that humanity would learn how to brainwash the mind. Just like when our clothes are dirty, we put them into the washing machine. We add detergent and then turn on the machine. The machine takes over, and then presto, we have clean clothes. Imagine most of humanity never cleans their mind. Our mind is soiled. We build layers of dirt inside of us. We can't control ourselves, so consequently we lash out at others. In the best mental state, without being conscious and aware, is not natural. Imagine never washing your clothes for your entire life. At some point, if someone told you how to wash your clothes, you would probably laugh. Why in the world would you want to wash your clothes, you would say. There are all sorts of violence in relationships. Everything from beatings to shootings to verbal abuse. The list is endless. Most people carry traits from their ancestors. It gets carried over into the subconscious. Generation after generation, most of us are oblivious to it. We are leaves blowing in the wind. We react to each situation without thinking about the consequences of our actions. Because our focus is on doing, we never stop and reflect. We never are in a state of being. We live in the hurricane state of our minds. The Jains were probably one of the first psychologists. They had a roadmap of the soul's learning process. The soul goes on a journey of darkness to light. It is a grand video game. Each step in the video game is a learning process. There are an infinite mental states of being. The goal is fine to tune the guitar of life. The Jains have spent over 2,500 years fine-tuning this guitar. In the last century, awareness of nonviolence reaches the West. Scientists just started researching how to achieve a positive state of mind only in the last 30 years or so. Granted, we are still behind the times, yet gradually we are getting there. 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards are the name of the game. By humanity discovering their true nature, relationships will be better. We are going from me to we. A great transformation in humanity is occurring. The sun is rising in the sky. It's going to be a beautiful day. Nonviolence in your mind and body. What came first, the chicken or the egg? The body and the mind are so tangled with each other. It's like a huge bundle of string. Imagine for each thought you have a series of chemical reactions gets released into your bloodstream. The Buddhists have the following saying: holding onto anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. You see, each time we get angry, a series of harmful chemicals gets released into the body. Some people are so out of sync that the faucet never gets turned off. Even if they want, it takes time, patience, and effort. Our subconscious is driving the show. If someone says something to you that you don't like, you will automatically get angry. The anger is wired directly into your body. By the time we reach the age of 35, our body is hardwired directly from the subconscious. It is driving the show. We are on autopilot. Habits, good and bad, are hardwired directly into our bodies. We are like leaves blowing in the wind. Each morning we get up, we do the same thing over and over. It's like in the old days listening to a record and the album is scratched. It will play the same thing over and over again. This is our life. Even if we want to change, we have to start to rewire our circuits constantly. In order for that to happen, one must be able to break away from a beta state to change. You see, a beta state of mind can't reach the subconscious. So if you say an affirmation to change, it can't reach the subconscious to rewire the circuits. This is where meditation comes in. A person who meditates learns over time how to connect to the quantum field. The stronger the connection you have to this field, the more capable you will have to rewire the human body. The scenarios are endless. It's up to your imagination. You have free will. The quantum field doesn't judge us, yet changing and rewiring your circuits require you to be in sync with love, kindness, patience, tolerance, and compassion. This is why it's so important to meditate. This is why it's so important to be conscious and aware in each and every moment. The wise ones in the past would monitor their thoughts and actions. If they were in a situation where the person would say something to make them angry, they would simply smile. Why put gasoline on the fire? They understood that by getting angry, they are drinking their own poison. Yet, this is difficult to do. That's why it takes constant training. We have people in office who will Twitter whatever comes to their mind. They don't know how to stop, look, and listen. To be honest, this was never taught in schools. Look at our nation today. Both sides are pissed off and can't work with one another. This is an emotionally immature society. In order for the world to change for the better, one must take responsibility and learn new ideas to discover their true nature. We must all ponder over the state of mind we are in. As a society, we must discover ways to become mature adults. We must help those in need. We can do this. Millions of people are waking up from their slumber.